Right, I'm going to do like this, almost like this fern down here. Now, please don't panic. I'm not going to make you blend it all, right? And I'm not going to make you do it one petal at a time, one leaf at a time either, because that would be absolutely mind-blowing. But what I'm going to do is I've got 42 and 43 here as well. Now, 42 is darker than 43, so keep your colour chart in front of you. And then 47 and 220. So I've got a little bit more of a greener green. I know that sounds strange, or a bluer green than a yellow green in the 47, and then the 220 is quite yellow. And I'm also going to bring in 107, which is a sand colour, because I think we need to just look like some of the leaves have gone a bit crispy. So the way I do this is I put the dark colour down first and then go over it with the light. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So we're starting with 42 and 43. So I'm going to go in with 42. And I'm going to turn this round, I'm going to do this bit here because they're slightly bigger here, and I'm going to go up from the bottom with my darkest colour. And I'm going to do not every one and not every alternate one. So there'll be a couple that are next to each other, and then maybe miss one or two, because I don't want it to look like it's uniform at all. Okay. And I'm just going to go in and put a little bit in here. Now, if you go out of the line slightly here, it doesn't matter, especially down this middle bit. In fact, it almost benefits it because it adds that depth behind it. So don't worry about that. Let's just deal with getting the petals down. So I've done the darkest of the 42 and the 43, and I'm now going to do the darkest between the 47 and the 220, and the darkest is the 47. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm just going to fill the leaves in that are still blank. I'm not worrying about the sand bit yet. I'm going to come back to that. And I'm just going to fill in the little bits that are left behind, okay? And then I'm going to go back to my 42, 43 even, and go over the ones that I've done with 42. Now you can either go up from the bottom and move some of that brown or that darker green, or you can come down from the top. I actually prefer coming down from the top because you just slightly brush into that darker colour that's at the bottom, rather than going over the colour at the bottom and in such a small space, potentially eliminating all of that colour. So let's just work our way through. So I'm adding different shades and tints and tones of those greens in there. And it doesn't matter if you mix, one of the colours from the first set of leaves with a colour from another set of leaves. It really doesn't matter, because that's what nature looks like. I'm going back in with 47 now, so I'm going to come down here and just kind of dot here and there as well, just add a little bit more of different colours in. I think it works really well. And because it's such a small space, it's just not enjoyable almost to go into every little tight space, because you just lose the will to live after a while. And it's not about that, it's about enjoying it. And then I'm going to go in with my 107. And I'm just going to literally just dot here and there on some of the leaves, just to add that brown element in. No rhyme or reason, just here and there on some of the darker ones, some of the lighter ones. Just add that extra little bit of tone and depth into your colouring. And then down the middle, I'm just going to look at the darkest colour that I've got out of all these. And it's probably, let's have a look on my colour chart, it's probably 224. So I'm going to bring that one in as well. And I know we're going to do the grass that's behind it, but this is going to cast a shadow anyway, so we might as well just go in and fill in those little white gaps with that dark pen while we're dealing with this foliage. And I just find that that's easier and more enjoyable than doing every single little leaf, because even I'm not that cruel. So I'm going to go back in now to 47, And I'm going to do the next strand. And again, I'm not counting, I'm not thinking about it, I'm just going in and adding a little bit of that green colour in. I'm not taking it to a certain place on the leaf, I'm just getting that colour down. Not thinking about what's in front and what's behind, because it's too small a space for that technique to have really any benefit to this, really. So it's not that we just can't be bothered, it's just that it doesn't add anything to it. And then I'm just going to do a slightly different one here. So I'm just going to go in and add little dots of green on some of these leaves. So rather than the bottom and then the top bit, I'm just going in and adding little dots of different greens within those leaves. Because the grass is going to be quite almost like a seamless blend, but adding some texture in there. I also want to get some texture into here. And I think this is a great way to do it. So I'm going to go in with 220 now, and I'm going to do the same thing. Because in nature you get those different greens mixing together. So let's replicate Mother Nature, because she's pretty good at getting it right. So again, you can use a slightly different technique and a different process on each strand of those leaves if you want to. It's up to you how you want it to look at the end, but I think if I show you a few techniques, you can then mix it up a bit. And again, because I'm dotting and I'm dotting in very small areas, it's not too much of an issue with this because the background of it's going to be green. But if you're going to do, some kind of foliage going over something that isn't also green underneath, just think about not going out of the lines too much. But with this, I'm not worried, because I'm now going to go in and I'm going to fill in those middle bits anyway, because they're going to be dark when I colour the hill. So while I'm doing this, I might as well do that. Make sure you get rid of the white bits, because if you're going to see white bits anywhere, it's going to be here. And that will throw out the perspective. And it's really, really weird because it can be the smallest amount of white, but you notice it. It's like when you're colouring, so if you've ever done Zentangle and you're colouring in with your micron pens and you miss a bit, that's the bit that stands out. So let's make sure that we don't have any of that. And then let's go back in with our 107. And again, just dot odd ones, giving that nib a little bit of time to move that green and add that little bit of that natural colour in. Now, just because I said don't worry about going out the lines, don't start doing this. Just still behave and do this in a nice order. So I can see now from here, I've got this nice darker green here with a more yellowy green going on and a bit more brown. And I've got it here, but none of it is jumping out at me and going, there's a line there, there's a harsh line it needs blending through. So this is quite a nice one to do here as well. And I might just take my 47 and just dull down that yellow a little bit that's going back there, because I've got a bit too much of it in one area. But I'd rather go back and go over it than sit there for an hour or two thinking, right, I've done that bit there, so I need to do this bit here. It's not that complicated. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the others now, and you can do the same. Now just be aware when you're looking at this one, for example, so this starts with the leaves coming out on the right hand side, but when you get to the left hand side, the right hand side of the next leaf that's in front of it overtakes it. So just keep an eye on what you're doing and where you're going, which leaves are going where. And this is the only, well, these three really are the ones that, because they're not as spread out, they're not coming forward, they're kind of building behind each other. These are the three that you need to keep an eye on. So if I get to a tricky bit and I need to tell you, I will do. But other than that, you just go ahead and just dot in these different greens and build up this lovely, almost fern-like foliage. Just using the same colours, 42, 43, 47, 220 and 107. And just go in and have a little play. And then I'm going in to fill in those gaps that are going to be behind there with the 224. But I'm just being aware that when I get to the tip of this one, that's also the end of the log. So I would rather you were a little bit more cautious. And if you're not sure, leave it and we can come back to it once we've covered the log, because then you'll see where the missing bits are, okay? Okay. And I'm just going to not put any of the 107 on that because I'm going to do this as a little bit of a different one. But now I'm just going to work through and do these next few here. Ooh. And then I'm just going to go in with the 224 just in this base here, just going down here. So as we get further up, the white bits get a little bit wider and start to go into the hill that's behind here. So I'm going to leave those white for now. It's where the density of the colour would be stronger. You know, when there are leaves on top of leaves on top of leaves and it's really deep and dark behind that foliage, that's when I would use 224. But for this one here, and especially when you start to come up here, I'm just going to leave that white for now and we can fill that in when we do the hill. So next one now, just work your way through. I do quite like this dotty technique because it gives me a more natural looking foliage. Right, I think I'm happy with that. I'm just going to have a quick look at it, make sure that I haven't missed any bits. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to turn that round and let you see. And I'm going to turn around and show you the back as well, because you can see by doing the dotting, because it's such a small area, the dotting really helps, because you're not getting that ink right into that card. It's almost sitting on the top because it's so gentle. And you'll see that when I turn round, you see there's hardly any colour coming through. And that's not because you're not blending, because you are, you're using the little dots to add that texture and that colour, but it's not forcing that ink through that card. And that's what you want when you're working on a really small space, because with a small space, if you flood it, it's got to go somewhere and it's going to go out because you're working in such a tiny area. But that's kind of where you should be at the back of it. Very, very light, very, very gentle. Okay, so finish that off and then we'll start to do these almost like reeds, if you like.